Hello, Fish Faithful. This is Marlins Daily on the Fan Arch Network. I am Kurt Semder, and we are coming to you the day after an ugly game last night at Lone Depot Park. A game that neither team really played very well, most of it, but in the end, the Marlins lose yet again. A tough 7-3 loss in extra innings. A game that the Marlins were in somehow for most of the game, and just completely, fell apart at the very end. A Jaron Duran grand slam in the 11th inning, the difference in this game. That grand slam off of Cade Gibson. This game, there are a lot of different things to break down from this one, so let's start there because we got a lot to talk about today here on the show. This game was a situation, again, where the Marlins offense failed to take advantage of the opportunities that they had in front of them. We talked a little bit about this in the first game of the series, where they failed with runners in scoring position. They were somehow even worse in this game. 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position in the second game of the series. They're now 3 for 32 through the first two games. You're not going to win baseball games that way, plain and simple. I mean, look at this game. They scored 3 runs in this game together, right? Brian Everetto with a sacrifice fly in the 5th inning tied this game up at 1. Okay, sac fly, he scored on an out. Heriberto Hernandez did launch his 20th home run of the season as he continues to be a true power revelation for this team this year. That was a legitimate hit, but again, the solo home run, not a hit with runners in scoring position, by the way. That tied the game up at 2 in the 6th. And then the just wild and crazy play that took place in the 10th inning where Javier Sanoja strikes out to end the game, except the ball gets away from the Red Sox catcher. Sanoja is able to get to first base while Navarreto scores from third, the game-tying run. So 2 of the 3 runs that the Marlins scored on this game were scored on outs. They had 7 hits in the game. They hit a home run. They missed opportunities left and right yet again for the second straight night, and it cost them in this game. And I think a lot of it had to do with the lineup that they put out there. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. The other thing that confused me in this game in particular, Tyler Phillips did end up starting the game. We were talking yesterday, joking about how TBD was going to be on the mound once again. Tyler Phillips did get the nod. He got to start. He pitched well. 4 2/3 innings of this 7 strikeouts, taken out after 84 pitches, which is about normal for him. So no real argument there. Would have loved to have seen him continue in the game a little bit more, but wasn't going to happen. And the question I had coming out of this, and again, this has nothing to do with this particular game, but it's just an overall question with this team and the way that they have operated. Why didn't Phillips start last week against the Phillies? If you were going to just use him again in the starter role in his next turn in the rotation. If you were planning on, moving him back to a relief role, if that was the idea, well then, okay, but then you wouldn't at his very next turn in the rotation put him out there as a starting pitcher. It made no sense when they did it last week, considering the fact that Tyler Phillips started 13 of his previous 14 appearances. He was being used as a starting pitcher, not once or twice, not for a couple of weeks, but for a couple of months. And he wasn't ineffective either in that role. So that was what really confused me last week when they decided to go with Cade Gibson as an opener and went to Phillips later in the game. It made no sense then, and it makes even less sense now that they started Phillips in this game. Now, I'm not saying that the decision to start Tyler Phillips in this game was a mistake. Not at all. I think he should just be in the rotation. Let's stop messing around with it, like this team continues to mess around with everything that they don't need to. But there was no reason to do that, and especially in a game against the Phillies that the team had to have. And here in this game, the pitching really wasn't the problem. Like I said, Tyler Phillips did well. The relievers, and there were many of them who came out of the bullpen in this game, pitched well and kept Boston from breaking this game open, keeping Miami in the game and giving them opportunity after opportunity. The problem is they just missed almost all of those opportunities. As I said, 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. And now now with the loss to Boston here, Miami, second straight loss. They're now back to just a game over 500, and they just keep going back and forth. A couple games over 500, back to 500. Couple games over 500, back to 500. That is not a recipe to make the playoffs. It's just not. And once again, this team struggles against playoff contending teams. They've lost the first 2 games of this series, and despite the fact that they did not get blown out, they didn't get really beat badly in either of these games, they really didn't give you a lot to think about that they were going to win either. So not thrilled with what we saw from the team, especially on the offensive side, over the first 2 games of this series. Now, the other thing that came out of this, and we talk about this, is the bullpen has to be completely exhausted. They used 8 pitchers in this game. Granted, going into the game, you don't know it's going to go into extra innings. You hope that it doesn't. But the Marlins used 8 pitchers in this game to get through, doing what they always do with the matchups and the, getting the guy in where they think it's going to be. Okay, great. All of that would be perfectly fine if they didn't have another bullpen game coming up today. And that is why back-to-back bullpen games is nuts. It's just incredibly stupid. At some point, you have to look at this going on and look at your rotation and make an adjustment. You need to maybe push one guy back a day, one of your starters, whether it's, maybe you don't want to mess with Sandy or Yuri, but maybe you move Jensen Junk around a little bit so that it's, bullpen game. The bullpen games are sandwiched in between the 3 starting pitchers that you have, so this situation doesn't happen. Because now you've got a situation going into tonight's game where you have pitchers who should normally be unavailable based on the amount of pitches that they threw last night or the amount of games that they have pitched recently, that are going to have to pitch in this game. Because at best, Ryan Gusto is going to give you 5 innings. And that's even being very, very generous. And I don't mean that against him. I just mean that against the way this team operates. He's probably at best going to give you 4. It's a tough sell. And it is really, really asking a lot from your bullpen, from your pitchers, to be able to do this. And again, the timing couldn't be worse for these back-to-back bullpen games that they're having here against teams that are not going to miss the opportunities that are put in front of them the way the Marlins have, offensively especially. And the bullpen situation is not really resolving itself either. We saw, Pete Fairbanks is going on the injured list, as expected, with the nerve issue in his right hand. And guess what? We called it right here on Marlins Daily yesterday. Clayton McCullough says, no defined closer. We don't know who our closer is going to be, which isn't groundbreaking. We've seen teams go with closers by committee before. But we knew this was going to happen because that allows them to choose the best pitcher for the matchup available. Just pick a closer and go with it. I don't even care if it's Calvin Fauché over Michael Peterson, but just pick a guy and go with it. Because it just really comes off at this point like they don't know what they're doing. And that is kind of the feeling you get when you look online and you see some of the reactions from fans to what this team is doing, how they've been operating, the reactions to the releasing or firing of most of the professional scouting department in favor of video scouting, laughed at by most people. And the Marlins aren't the only team that's done something like this, but they appear to be the only one who's doing it to this degree. you put your team in a situation, your organization in a situation where people are laughing at you for front office decisions you didn't have to make. I don't know. I'm not a fan of the decisions that they're making right now. I just feel like this team, the fans want this team to contend. They want this team to try to make the playoffs, and it just feels like at every turn they're doing something to just hurt themselves where they didn't have to, you know? And another example of that would be the lineup that they put out there last night. And I know I'm one of those people, if you pay attention to the show, I obsess over the lineup that they put out there. But this lineup that they put out there against Peyton Tolley was not a great lineup. I had so many questions, as many of you did on Twitter when they released it. I love reading the comments because it's just one. There's always a couple of things you can count on. You can always count on somebody questioning why Leo Jimenez is in the lineup. Usually it's more than one person. You can usually question somebody questioning what's going on with the catching situation and why someone is not in the lineup that probably should be. Here was my issues with this particular lineup. Javier Sanoja should not be batting cleanup. I don't care what his numbers say. They stacked the lineup with righties. That's fine. Sanoja should not be batting cleanup. Leo Jimenez should not be in this game in first base. I don't care about the righty situation. You just got Kyle Stowers back. He got put into this game relatively early as a pinch hitter for Agustin Ramirez. It's not like he needed the day off. And Joe Mack versus Brian Everetto, I'm not going to argue that. But again, the lineup was all weird. Listen to me. Griffin Conine. Jeff Conine would have been better. Griffin Conine near the bottom of the lineup, bad decision too. And it got me thinking with the scouting and the AI and everything that's going on. Do the Marlins use AI to make their lineup? I don't think they do, because what I did was I used ChatGPT to put together a Marlins lineup. I simply asked it what would be the best lineup using the roster they have against Peyton Tolley. The lineup ChatGPT gave me, I feel, was better than the lineup they put out there last night. Otto Lopez batting first, Xavier Edwards batting second, Heriberto Hernandez batting third, three righties. Edwards a switch hitter, but three of your best hitters, 1 through 3. Kyle Stowers in the lineup, batting cleanup as a lefty. Fine, lefty on lefty. Ramirez DHing, batting 5th. Estuary Ruiz in center field, a righty, batting 6th. Conine, bottom of the order again, lefty, hitting 7th. And then you have Sanoa and Mack rounding it out. I like that lineup a lot better than the one the Marlins put out. So either the Marlins are using bad AI, Scout GPT, whatever you want to call it, or they just decided to go with a righty-heavy lineup that they would then bump out slowly their lefties into the lineup for some of their right-handed batters as the pitching matchups dictated, which is exactly what they did in this game, and they didn't drive in any runs. The Marlins cannot rely simply on AI. The Marlins cannot simply rely on numbers, and they have to stop relying on trying to outthink and out-strategize the matchups. Play your best players. Give yourself a chance to win. That's the bottom line. Because when you don't do that, you put yourself in a situation like they're in right now. And you put them in a situation where Miami's going to try to avoid the sweep tonight against Boston. They're facing Sonny Gray in a bullpen game, back-to-back bullpen game. And I don't know who they're going to put out there as a lineup. I don't know who's going to pitch in this game after Ryan Gusto, but it's going to be a challenging effort to avoid the sweep. We'll see if they can get it done. And we'll see if the Marlins can figure out a way to not lose the last 3 games of this homestand before they head out on the road. And we'll see if they can figure out a way to salvage something here and try to not fall further behind in the National League wildcard race. We will break down that game, and we will have much more to talk about as we make our way through this very, very interesting AI-heavy week here on Marlins Daily. Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to like and subscribe, comment on the bottom of this video. Of course, let me know what you think about how the team is doing. Love reading them, and I love talking about them right here on the show. And we will see you all tomorrow right here on Marlins Daily. Have a great day, everybody.